22, the time is 9 o'clock. This is a special meeting agenda. It's our monthly airport status update. Officially calling the meeting to order. Attending Commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Filios. Any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. First business item, May 2022. Airport Advisory Board minutes, discussion.
I can take that, if you don't mind, for
Greg,
starters.
go right ahead, please.
I think the bulk of our meeting was really filled with issues with D-zone skydiving. For the last 2 months, they've been trying to get a lease on the airport, but they've been unable to provide the airport with a plan that meets our minimum standards and operating rules. So 2 months ago, it was like, okay, we'll table this, and you can come back and you can give us a plan. Last month, we were really at the same place where I think Jeremy is requesting to lease a piece of dirt, but there's no real hard plans on what kind of building he wants to put on there, what kind of parking he wants to have, or he's gonna load the jumpers on and off the airplane, and also what type of sanitary facilities he has. So what we ended up doing again was tabling his request until next month. But we just keep, in my opinion, we keep kicking this can down the road. The minimum rules and standards are there for a reason. They aren't different than they really aren't that much different from what they were 5 years ago. So I think basically we're just waiting for D-Zone to come up with a plan. Stephen has emailed D-Zone again, requesting everything once again. I'll let you take it, Stephen.
In that email, I basically stated that he needs to address each item that's listed in the original letter that I sent to him that said what he's requesting, his time frame, if he's requesting a temporary waiver, how he's going to meet that temporarily, how he's going to operate, how he's going to meet it permanently, basically explaining what he's going to do each item. I've heard nothing back from him, so I don't know what's going to happen with it. We may see something here right at the end, 11th hour, kind of like what we had with the email he sent to us previously. But in my opinion, he didn't answer any of our hard questions of how are you going to meet our actual minimum standards? So we're kind of stuck here in a holding pattern until he does this. To brief you, if the board denies his request, he does have the right to appeal that denial or to the BOCC. So it would just be a special meeting with you guys. So.
And I think what we're trying to do is give him an option before, at least in my opinion, we deny it. So we're letting him come back again.
So what's the option we're offering?
Basically, what we've done is we've gone through, he made a very broad request of, I want to operate here. And we said, okay, so right now you have no facilities, you have no plan. These are all the things you're missing today on what you've told us. And then basically you've told us nothing.
Okay.
Other than he wants to lease dirt, okay? But we're defining a facility as he needs something on the airport of a facility, i.e. a place to conduct business, parking, restroom facilities, and we view as someplace to conduct business as do briefings if needed, pack parachutes, inspect parachutes, and parking, and also load the aircraft on his property that he's leasing from us. Well, he hasn't been able to define how he's going to do that plan temporarily or permanently. So we're stuck in this holding pattern of how are you going to do that?
So while we're stuck in this pattern, are they jumping?
No.
They're not jumping. When you talk about leased land, does that include the landing zone?
Yes, he would lease the landing zone, his loading area, and his building and parking area. In fact, we were about to issue him the lease right prior to, and then Stancraft purchased Out Resort. And we held off on that because we were informed, we actually asked Stancraft, were you still gonna honor that lease agreement with him? So we verified with all of those lease tenants that Resort had, and they said no, they weren't gonna honor any of them. So we held off on those leases because we knew that it would be far harder to terminate a lease that was somebody out of compliance than just not issue a lease and state, how are you gonna be in compliance?
Okay.
And the issue of contention right now is I think Well, one of their members feels that leasing dirt is a facility, and it's not. You can't say, well, that's my facility, it's that area I'm leasing.
Okay, keep going.
So they're on hold. Stephen can cover the rest. It was all basically an update on airport projects.
Yep, we continue to move forward. We're pretty close to closing out the fencing. We're waiting for grass to grow on the D North still. We'll see what happens on that, whether, what happens there. They did do some fertilizing on that D North contract. So that should hopefully be able to close out that project soon. I would really like to pay them so we can stop dealing with that contractor. SRE, as we just approved that contract, we're shrinking that building down significantly. The initial bid, realistically, we're breaking this project into about 7 different bid packages. The initial bid is literally the structure, a gravel floor, and heating and power. That's it. Everything else is add-ons. So, as I said to the board when we approved it, we're looking at about $2.2 million or a little over $2 million of funding available from state and federal monies. So we'll see what that bid comes back. That's already scheduled to be bid out, I think June 5th, which is a Sunday. So it'll be in the paper.
Okay, so the 760,000,
You got 760, but there's also another 700 another 1.1 million from a bill money, another 300,000 from the state, and then we have our matches as well.
and how big our match?
Typically, it's about anywhere between 5 and 10%.
Okay.
Where the extra money that we want to put into it is my guess.
Size of the building?
Right now, it's been shrunk down to 88 by 90, if I remember right.
So about 7,500 square feet. Okay.
And
Okay.
the problem is we're hearing very odd numbers of anything from finished structures of similar nature are $250 to $150 a square foot, but we're not getting, it's all over the board for these structures. They're just not making sense on their pricing that we're hearing, so.
Irrational. Okay, keep going.
Gulfstream Road Utility Project, that is actually scheduled to start here in the next couple weeks. So that should be nice to have that started. We are still missing, that'll actually be a project that will get started and then probably stopped because we are missing the 18-inch connection mainline points due to the upsizing to support Avondale Water. So that's gonna be a little bit. Infinite Electric Apron Utility Project, we're almost done with design for that. We actually are sending that to DEQ for final approvals. Runway 624 Rehab Project, we actually just had some meetings with the FAA. We're getting some clearances from them and some conversations to verify signage, what they're gonna support for signage replacement and lighting replacement packages and things like that. So we're getting close to that. Sewer inventory is almost done. If anybody is really bored, as I said, to want to watch sewer videos, and let me know. I can send you those videos. ATC Planning, we are kind of putting this a little bit on hold right now to do more data collection because we've had a terrible spring due to weather. We are not the only airport. Spokane, Phelps Field has had probably one of the worst years as well, just from looking at their traffic data. They've had their worst spring in basically the last 30 years.
Because of rain?
Because of rain, because of the weather, their traffic counts are really far down too. So we're gonna delay this out before we really start moving on it because we want a better encapsulation of what our data is. So we're gonna probably delay this out until July. We're just kind of putting in a holding pattern to get more data collection.
Okay.
So that's it. Any other questions?
The CIP?
I think I sent that to you, didn't I?
Oh, did you? Okay. Oh, yeah, you did. Okay. Okay, so is that it on the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, second item.
Sorry, hold on, about the CIP,
go
but you
ahead.
said it's going to change because of the BIL money.
Yes, the BIL money, we're gonna have more funding rolling in, but the FAA hasn't truly shown that we are gonna be doing it yet, because they just, when I asked them why we weren't BIL money, they just realized we were supposed to be, in my opinion, of talking to them. So they're
With that
not-
national designation,
Yes.
right.
So-
So the 1.1 million that you talked about, is that including the 750 FAA? Okay,
The 726 or 720 something.
okay,
Can't remember exactly what the bill money is.
okay.
Okay, ready to move on? Second item, May 22, Part 139, Certification Workshop Discussion.
I can take that.
Go ahead.
Basically, the goal of the meeting was to talk about the 139 certification. And I think it was really looking for, how much more is it costing us to keep a 139 certification, to keep the certificate? Unfortunately, the conversation more or less turned, well, I will say Stephen did a great job of laying out all the things that he has to do to comply with 139. And the question was, well, what do you want me to cut out, in order to save money or figure out what I'm paying extra for the 139 certificate? Unfortunately, the conversation turned to, we don't want to there were members in the audience that says we don't want to get rid of 139. Not that the association was advocating for that either. They just want to know the cost. And really, the conversation just kind of went by the wayside, and we really didn't get a lot accomplished there, except some people frustrated. I made the suggestion that I get with a couple members of the association along with Stephen, and we sit down and we talk about that and see if there's anything we can do to further define some of those costs to figure out, kind of where we're at. And I was told that they really don't want to meet with me and Stephen at this time, and then you got a letter. So I don't know what else I can add.
So
I think we accomplished the goal.
one other item that we did do is I attached in the packet what I viewed as cost-benefit analysis. I included opportunity costs. I actually showed that in the meeting. I didn't include any numbers in it that I included in this packet because, to be honest, I was having trouble with my own numbers that I was coming up with because I kept running into the problem of, well, I don't see a benefit. And I actually asked, one of the questions I asked was, well, what is the benefit of getting rid of 139? And I didn't get an answer. There was no great answer that I got. So there was no way to, all I see is cost associated with it. So if you're not offsetting that benefit or that cost with a benefit, it's hard to show a good cost benefit analysis if you don't have a benefit to offset the costs. And the first one, the higher number one, is that, to me, the opportunity cost in there, that I think they're very reasonable, but I think that they can be extraordinary. That's why I did the second one where it pulls the opportunity costs and those out. If we're not changing anything, I think there's this belief that we spend a large sum of money on things with 139. It's not that. It's mostly staff time. That's what we spend 139 on. For example, we spend, say, 2 to 3 weeks a year at most on training. Well, that's 2 to 3 weeks we could be doing other stuff on the airport instead of doing training. But if you're at a 139, you still should be doing training, and regardless of whatever that is. So what that changes, I can't tell you exactly. So that's why it's kind of this, I don't have a great answer when everybody says, well, what's the cost? Until I know what we're talking about putting the level of service to is that's where why I keep asking that same question, because I can't tell you it's this.
Let's simplify it. On an annual basis, roughly, what does 139 cost us?
It goes back to, I can't answer that question either, because you look at, I could pull up other airports that are non-139 that I know have $4 million budgets. I could pull up 139 airports that only spend $600,000 budgets. So it varies so far depending on what the airport is and how much staffing you have and how much land you have as an airport and how many runways you have. You know, for as a 139, as an airport that we are, we don't, you know, I'm gonna point back to our land rents and everything like that. Our land rents, realistically, our land rents are below market rate when we start looking at other locations of similar size, similar nature of the community, everything like that. So I don't see us being prohibitive because we're a 139 airport to our operations of our airport. I don't control fueling, so I can't control that. Any of our fees truly aren't that high compared to other communities of similar nature either. So the cost of us being a 139 airport isn't extraordinarily burdensome on our tenants or anything. So that's where I'm stuck at.
When did 139 come about here?
98.
Do you know why?
It was partly because of Empire, but it was also because the airport was starting to fall behind on some stuff. And the thing is if you got rid of 139, you could get it back. But what happens is as you move away from 139, you always have a drift away from net maintenance of that if you don't have something that holds you to the standard. And if you want it back, the FAA will come and do an inspection on you and say, well, this is the things you're missing and this is what you need to bring yourself back up to standard on. Then we don't have money, or we may or may not have funding available to help you with. So that's the problem is, yeah, that you could get it back, but
Where are Standcraft and Empire on this?
both want to keep it. Both said in the advisory board meeting.
Advisory board, where do you stand? Let's go, guys, because
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
getting fed up with this, quite frankly.
Okay, I'm in total, my opinion is that we keep it, because here's why. If you want to look at what it's costing us, sure, you may get to mow the grass a little bit less to keep it outside the standards of what the FAA says. Sure, you may not have to plow the runways and let it be slick in the wintertime, but not closing it based on FAA standards. You're still going to do some type of training. You just can't take a shotgun out there and start shooting birds. So, I mean, all those things are going to happen. You may save a little bit of time snow plowing. You may save a little bit of time in training, but you're still going to have training. You may save a little time in mowing the lawn or the grass, but I don't even think you can pull an FTE out of that. The other thing that concerns me is like by losing the 139 certification, you may lose some FAA funding. My opinion only. I'll let the rest of the people speak.
So I just want to add something. I have never advocated for losing 139. I've only supported, and which Stancraft supported this too, finding out how much it costs to maintain that certification. And it sounds like from Stephen, we don't have a way to track it. We don't have a way to actually find out what it costs this airport to maintain that certification.
We could if you did surveys and you did all sorts of stuff. If you went back to those options that I presented about the $100,000 studies, but those you're surveying people, you're finding out what services people want, and then you're backtracking through budgets to find out what that means until you determine what that level of service is. And it may come back and saying, well, you're not changing your budget, you're just staying what it is. So that's the problem is you may spend the money, find out that it is where it is. That's where I'm stuck at is until we find that level of service that you're stating that you're going to do, you can't say what you're going to do.
Bill, what are your thoughts?
Well, there was a lot of discussion on what the airport director wanted. And I called him up and I said, well, what is it that you want? And he said exactly what I thought he was going to say. Whatever the Board of Commissioners decides. Is that accurate?
Pretty much.
Did we have that conversation?
We did.
Okay.
I mean, the way that I look at it is this. Obviously, you're struggling to come up with a cost-benefit analysis because it seems to come down to what are we willing to sacrifice. The way that I look at it is growth is going to occur whether we like it or not. I don't know what that rate is. I don't know if it's going to be sustainable. I suspect in the short term it's going to slow because of impending recession. But the fact of the matter is the area is growing. So you go to a 139 to have greater assurance that you can get the funding that you need to continue to operate and make the adjustments that you need. So if we're going to continue to have growth, but then we're going to take 139, and I realize no one's saying get rid of it, but I see the struggle to try to get to a cost-benefit analysis. As far as I'm concerned, I'm done with it. I don't want any further studies on this. I want to keep 139.
Okay, so Nancy Pluff has already started.
How's she doing it?
Well, based on Stephen's information and based on what 139 requires.
I agree with Chris. I'm not interested in doing anything further.
When did you task her with this?
Oh, a week or two ago, but she's been ill, so probably 2 weeks ago.
You know, can I also add, and this is,
Go ahead.
this is just my opinion, not a legal opinion, but if you were, well, I guess you aren't going to get rid of the certificate.
Correct.
Okay, so that's a moot point, because if you decide, let's say it was gone, and then one of these jets run off the runway, like happened 10 years ago or something like that, Aaron, whoever it was, you could, I don't know if they can come back and say, you know what, you're liable, you had all this in place, and you elected to not maintain your airport.
Yeah, so nobody's even advocating for lowering service. It's just like, what does it cost? Because sometimes, like with grants, which Stephen knows, the reporting and all that kind of has an internal administrative cost. So I think that's kind of just what it is. And if we're not able to identify it, then we'll go from there.
And it goes back to, a lot of that is already done internally on staff time anyways, which, yeah, you could defer it to we could do other duties, but a lot of it is, also goes back to is we should be keeping track of some of this records keeping anyways, because, for example, we're required to, the FAA wants us to keep track of how we do work orders, where we replace lights and things, but that's also helping us in case we find faults in our electrical system, or we have a massive issue in other areas, because it tells us if we have a regularly out light or system or some other problem.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, it's just if Nancy can come up with figures, great. If she can't, then she can't.
Well, if you want to keep her working on it, but my position right now is that I'm not interested in going forward. But
Sure.
if she can come up with a compelling, you don't want to do it.
No, it's a waste of time.
Joan? Greg?
Well, I just wholeheartedly support us retaining the Part 139, and I'm not sure that a cost analysis is going to give us any hard data that would shift someone's opinion about it. And I think that our corporate folks on the field are going to be pretty not very happy if we do away with Part 139.
And once again, that is not even on the table.
You're just trying to figure out that it costs X amount
Yep.
of dollars to maintain their certificate.
And I think when a taxpayer comes to me and says, what is this service costing? I think we have a fiduciary duty as a board of commissioners to provide that information.
Right, but we also have to compare it to the service. You know what this reminds me of? It's when corporations go through layoffs. They lay people off, and then the economy picks back up. A lot of those people won't return. They're bitter. And that's what scares me, is if we part with 139, cranking it back up may be more costly than having eliminated it to begin with. And I don't see any compelling reason. So if Nancy Pluff has time and you want to let her proceed, I'm okay with it. But for now, I agree with Bill. I'm not interested. I want to keep it, and that's it. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
So,
Number 3.
so this is just a heads up. There's two things that are coming up on the 31st meeting. It's the rate fee change, but it's also that we have a contract with Vector. They're the bill collecting for airport use fees. We've looked at this internally 2 different ways. We looked at asked Stancraft if they were interested in collecting it. It was a very fast no. They had no interest in it. Then we looked at it internally, whether we could do it. We came to the conclusion very quickly, we were gonna be more expensive if we tried to do this internally, than what the percentage that Vector would actually charge us. Vector's gonna take about 21% of this, of all of our use fees. Because we found that we would actually have to hire about 2 people, because what happens with most jets is they are not whoever operates them is not actually who owns them a lot of times. Or they're held through shell corporations or shadow corporations. So who is listed on the FAA's website does not actually receive the bills. So that means that we would spend an exorbitant amount of time researching and finding those people. Or we would have to actually physically go out and talk to every single aircraft to get that billing information. So it became the personnel time became extremely high, extremely quickly. Because, for example, last July, we averaged 160 IFR operations of aircraft that we would bill every day. So it became very time intensive very quickly, which is why we would look at outsourcing this for significantly less money, especially when you start looking at that position would probably be about 50,000 plus loaded wages, another 25,000 plus be probably 150,000 if we try to do it internally pretty quickly.
Okay, questions for Stephen?
Is the board supposed to,
Nothing today, but it'll be there's actually a contract on the 31st.
right, but where did it land on as far as what we're going to be charging for?
It'll be on the public hearing. I think it's $275 for the below 25,000, three and a quarter to like 75, and above 75, $350.
Okay, so that's not actually on here.
No, that's not.
Okay.
It matches Haley's though, I think is what it is. If Haley's on there,
It matches Haley's,
yes,
which is not on here.
not on there. I think we grabbed the wrong thing then.
Okay.
Can you speak very quickly to the PAC airport lease and how the escalator works in that?
Yeah, I can.
It's not on our agenda, so we can't do that right now, but,
You can probably do it in public comment.
yeah.
Yeah,
Do it in public
Yeah.
comment.
Yeah.
People would like to know.
Yep.
Okay.
So I will forward you the advertisement though when I get back to the office.
That would be helpful, because having a bunch of numbers that we're not going to be
Yeah,
doing is,
For an example though, a Citation 10 weighs about 30,000 pounds. If it lands twice, you're looking at about $500 twice. To rent an aircraft, I know there's an operation just went to rent that to fly to a city in the middle of the country was $160,000. So our cost that we're charging them is not much.
but it's Haley, it's comparable to Haley.
Yes.
If they buy fuel, do they pay?
We charge them regardless if they buy fuel.
Okay. But right now, if they buy fuel, they aren't.
No, we still charge them even our use fee today.
Did you say 500 if they land twice?
Yeah, if they land twice, it'd be like $250 for the aircraft, if I remember
For
correctly.
each time. All right, so will be,
Considering it's about $100 to fill up your car, maybe that's not too bad. Okay.
so we're going to be significantly higher than Moscow or Pullman
Yes.
Airport. Okay.
You okay there? Storage units?
Yep, so storage units, we received 2 proposals from people that actually developed the 20 acres for the storage units. Look at it, that we were talking about the airport building storage units. That is what this document is. They're the both proposals. Obviously, we're gonna go with the proposal that's making us more money. We're just talking about that, giving you a heads up. That'll probably be on the 31st meeting as well, that lease agreement. So so that's just kind of a heads up that this will be going forward, that storage unit lease agreement will be in place.
Okay. Does this relate to the AG's opinion?
No, we are not
That's a
owning it.
private.
We are not doing anything. We are merely, these lease agreements are slightly different than our standard lease agreements. These are not a straight ground lease. We are doing a percentage basis
Revenue?
of their gross revenues.
So have you run that by legal?
Legal agreed. They were
Okay.
fine.
Cool. Okay.
So we are gonna be doing the one that obviously makes us more money though.
Northwest Airport Development.
This is a conversation piece that, just so everybody's aware, it's this one here. I've had 3 or 4 people come forward that they are requesting to actually develop out that area. They just want to have first right of refusal to build. This is kind of standard for a lot of bigger airports, or airports that can't actually, well, realistically don't have space in their CIPs to develop or have a funding mechanism to pay for it. My plan is to been able to work on this. I'd hope to get this out early this next month, but I've been tied up with other things. But the goal is actually to do an RFP for this area and basically put this out to bid and basically have somebody come in and develop this area as a private entity. So what they'll do is they'll actually develop all the taxi lanes to the FAA standard. At that point, they'll give us the taxi lanes, then the roadways, and all the infrastructure will then be given out to all the private entities, that whoever has the utilities. And then they have an X period of time to develop the hangars to make their money back. So there would be probably 5 to 10 years that they would have that ability to develop those hangars.
So this is the space we're talking about? Okay. So they would go in, put in the infrastructure, and then as they found clients, they would
build out.
build out, but we're getting the land lease.
We would still get the land lease as soon as that structure starts. They would, during that 5 to 10 years, they would not pay anything. But as soon as that structure starts, we would do a lease agreement for that area, and we would then start making money.
So if somebody wanted a space out there but wasn't going to use this developer, then they would be,
If there's no area developed yet, we would do carve-outs where we can pull that land back, that they could then develop area out. But, this is the risk where if you put it out like this, that they have to deal with that developer. If there's basically after that window of whatever we set it at, 5 years or 10 years, the ground then becomes back to us and we lease it out however we normally would lease it. But the big thing is we don't have to use probably $5 to $6 million of FAA money to develop out taxi lanes. We don't have to do probably about the same amount of money to develop out infrastructure between sewer, water, gas. I mean, this project alone is probably between $8 and $10 million when you're all said and done.
So what are you thinking? Are they anticipating commercial operations?
You're probably looking at commercial operations, you're looking at hangar development in varying sizes, all the way from 100 by 100 all the way down to 40 by 40 T-hangar size. And this is about 120 acres.
Okay.
So it's our next area, but I don't know when the FAA is gonna have money for us available to develop it, or where we're gonna have any money available to develop out any of the infrastructure.
and this is all owned by us already.
Yes.
Any other questions for Stephen?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part. Did you say somebody approached you, but we're going to do an RFP?
I've had 4 people approach me
Okay.
asking about this,
To do this?
to do this.
Okay.
Are you familiar with any of them?
Yes.
All of them?
I've known, one is already on the field.
Okay.
The other 2, I've had communications with in the past, but they saw the development because we were talking about other things on the field and they asked about it. So yeah, there's a lot of interest and a lot of future possibilities there because they see the development and growth in the area. And they see that we're out of space, developed space as it sits today.
So you're going to go out with an RFP?
That's the plan. My goal is to have it out by July, but it may be later.
Okay. Will you draft that?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, public comment. Bill, you wanted to have Stephen comment on.
Yes.
So the PAC lease has some escalator clauses. I think it was every 4 years. The rate increases by 5 cents going for the first 20 years. And then after 20 years, it escalates to market value on whatever that is at that time. I think it starts at 16 cents. I don't remember if it is that or not. But basically it's set up it changes every 4 years or 5 years. Can't remember. Been too long since I've looked at it. But it escalates every set period of time by 4 or 5 cents until 20 years, and then it moves to market.
Per square foot.
Yep. Per square foot.
Did they execute it?
I believe they did. I don't think we've gotten it back yet. I need to email Wally again.
Well, it's whatever the next board meeting is, they meet quarterly.
Yeah, they're quarterly.
So they meet in March.
Okay.
I don't know. Aren't you on it, Chris?
No, Bill's on it.
Liz? Is it March?
Yeah, they've got one coming up.
So June?
Okay, so next month.
Yeah,
Okay.
we did modify it to, they requested they put it into the start of their budget year, in October, and we said fine. So October 1st will be the start date.
Okay, so when is your budget presentation to us?
June 7th. Or June something. No, not June 7th.
First,
Or
June 1st.
June
If
1st.
Nancy continues, can she have something by then?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
Because if nothing else, no, it's not that, Bill. The thing is, if we're going to go through the budget, that's probably the appropriate time to look at it, if at all. As far as having a separate ongoing effort, I'm not in favor of that, but at least when we go through budget, we scrutinize all of them anyway. What?
There are some things that some people are qualified to
Oh, I see.
offer an opinion on, and some things that they are definitely not. Just because it goes on an Excel spreadsheet doesn't mean that it means anything.
Good point. And we can consider that, absolutely. Anyone else, any public comment? No? I have 9:38, meeting adjourned, thank you.